Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be looking at how to create this report that you can see on your screen using Power BI. This is a bank transaction report. It is a three-page report. Here we have the home. You can see that highlighted, fraud detection and transaction details. On this home page, we have total number of transaction, transaction amount, the trend of transaction by time of the day. If you hover, you can see detail of the number of transaction by that particular point. Here we have distribution by transaction status, whether it is a failed one or successful. You can also drill through to see the number of details of transactions that are successful. For instance, you can see these are the list of successful transactions. If you want to get more information regarding that, you can go back to the home page. Here we have the distribution that shows whether a transaction is fraudulent or not. So the percentage of fraudulent transactions to the one that are not fraudulent. You can also drill through to see transaction details like we did earlier. Down here we have distribution by transaction type, whether it is transfer, deposit, or withdrawal. And here we have transaction by region. You can zoom in to a particular region and to know what that particular point is, and you can zoom out as well. So up here we have the slicers that you can filter this dashboard with, whether transaction type. You can filter for transactions that are by the transfer transaction. You can see everything is interactive. And here also, let me just clear up this filter. You can filter by whether failed or successful, then device use, whether desktop or mobile, mobile for instance, and you can deselect as well, or network slice. The next page we have fraud detection page. This particular page gives a snapshot of fraudulent transactions, things that you need to know about that in this particular data, the total number of fraudulent transactions, the amount, the status, whether failed or successful, transaction type, then the bandwidth used, distribution by different bandwidths to check the internet speed, and network slice, as well as the region. You can also filter based on using the slices based on device use like we did earlier, and it also has the drill through capability to see transaction details within that particular bandwidth. For instance, you can see that here, so it has filtered for true because we drilled through from the fraudulent transaction page. Then you can go back as well to fraud detection. And the final one, which also serves as our due through page, is the transaction details. For this particular page, you can remove the filter by going to the filter pane and clearing the filter. Click on clear filter and clear filter. So you can have all the transaction details. You can get more information that you need from this particular part. So let's get started. If you're new to this channel and you've not subscribed, click on the subscribe button and turn on your notifications so that you can be notified when I post new videos. This video is a part of my playlist of Power BI projects. You can check the link on your screen for other Power BI projects, that the tutorials that I've created. I'm going to put the data set that we'll be using in this particular video in the description below if you want to follow along. Also, the PBIX file is going to be attached in this description. So the first thing we're going to do is to create our background on PowerPoint. These are the two backgrounds that I'm going to be using for this particular report. So I'll create this first one and you can create the other. So I'll click on new slide, a blank slide. Then I want to insert an image. This is the image that I'm using. So adjust the image to fit the whole slide. Then insert a shape. So we're going to be using the shape for our header parts. So I'll change the shape field to this shade of blue, no outline. Then on the fill part, I want to add transparency. So click on more fill colors, transparency to 5%. Click OK. So you can see a reflection of the image. Then add another shape. cover this space. So the shape fill for this particular one is going to be this particular shade of gray. Then no outline. Then I'll now add a another shape, in this case a rounded rectangle for placeholders for our charts. Adjust the edge of this one. So for this, I want the field to be plain white with no outline. And also I want to add an effect, a shadow, outer. On the shadow, I want to add a different shade of the shadow, not the regular black. I want it to be 35 in this case. So we have this here. I can now duplicate this for the other. Okay, so Control A, Control G to group all, then save as picture. You can save this to any location of your choice, but select save as SVG so that it will not be pixelated. Then I've already saved this, so I don't need to save it again. So for the second one, it's the same thing. You just need to remove the first shape and extend it. That's all. So let's go back to Power BI and continue. Now we're in Power BI, so I'm going to import the background that we created on PowerPoint. Just click on the Format Painter Canvas background, the first one, and browse bank one. This is what I saved it as. Then remove the transparency and save as fit. So we have the first page. Let me just for the second page is the same as the first one. So I will just import the same one to the second page. But the third page is slightly different. So I'm going to import the second page. I mean the third one. So we have this. So the next thing we're going to do is to import our data set. So we're going to import the data set. Data set is a CSV file. So I'll click on Get Data CSV. So the title is a bank. Yeah, this particular one. So I'm going to click on Transform. So here we're on the Transform page. And you can see on the Applied Steps section, Power BI has applied some step, promoted header, as well as change type for us. I can go through the type to see if the particular you can go through the type to see if the each particular column represents the type that you want it to be allocated to, the type befitting to it, whether it's an integer column or a text column. And for this other part of column quality, if you don't have this enabled, you can enable this using view, column quality, column profile, and distribution. This will help you in cleaning your data because it gives you an overview of what each column is like, the number of error, empty, and valid one. Our transaction ID is obviously a text, and this is what I want it to be because it's a text column. I mean, it's an ID column. Then the transaction amount, this is the decimal, which is right. And down here, this is going to be the column that I need to clean because you can see that our latitude and longitude are on the same particular column. So I'm going to click on this, transform, then split column. I'm going to be splitting this column by delimiters. So I'll first click on delimiter. First thing I'm going to do is to split it first by this comma in the middle. So I'll click on whichever one because it's just one particular comma. So whether I click on left or right, it's just one comma. So I'll select the comma, delimiter, and click OK. So you can see that it has been splitted. So I'm going to rename this first. This first one is the latitude, while this is the longitude. So I'll rename this as latitude. And the second one, longitude. So I'm going to split this further because I want the value to be separate from the coordinate sign so that the map can pick it up. So I'll right click, click on split column, still delimiter in this case, and it's going to be custom space. Yeah, just leave it at each occurrence because it's just one space. So we have that here. So I'm going to rename this. This is latitude value, and this is latitude sign. So I'm keeping this so that it can also help whoever that is consuming this report to know what sign it is. Then longitude part, the limiter, then space. So I'll remove this particular one because this is obviously empty. Then rename this to, this is the value, and this is the sign. Next thing I'm going to do here is to work on this particular timestamp column. You can see that it has both the time and date, and I want to use just the time and not the date. So I'll duplicate this, change the data type of this to just time so that this can reflect just time. Rename this to time, and here back to the timestamp, I'll change the data type of this to date only and rename this to transaction date. Okay, so these are the transformations I want to do on this data. So I'll just click close and apply. Now we have imported the data set. If you look at the table view here, we have the transaction ID, the sender's account ID, receiver's ID, the transaction amount, the type of transaction, whether it is a transfer, withdrawal, or deposit. We have the date, transaction status, whether it is failed or successful, fraud flag, whether it is fraudulent. If it is fraudulent, this will be true. If it is not, it is false. Then the latitude and the longitude. Then we have the device to use, whether mobile or desktop, the network slice ID, the latency, bandwidth, the PIN code, as well as the time of the transaction. So for this, I want to group this bandwidth. Um, I want to put them in different buckets. So to do this, I'm going to be creating a new column. So new column. So I'm going to be using this DAX measure to create this. And it's actually a switch statement when it is true. When the bandwidth, if it is greater than or equal to 50, but less than 100, put it in the 50 to 100 bucket. If it is greater than or equal to 100, but less than 150, put it in a 100 to 150 bucket. Then like that. Then if it is above 250, then put it out of range. Then click OK, commit. So we have the bandwidth. You can validate this by going through the bandwidth. You can see that we have 246 here, which is within the 150 to 250 bucket. Then also 52, which is within 550 to 100 bucket. So this DAX is actually doing what we want it to do. Then let's go back to the report view. On the report view, I'm just going to create two measures here, which is definitely going to be the total number of transactions as well as the total transaction amount. And for total number of transactions, we are just going to count the transaction ID. So I'll right click on the table, anywhere on this particular table, and click on new measure, total transactions, which is equal to count distinct. That is the distinct count of the transaction ID column, this column. The next one is going to be the total transaction amount. We have the transaction amount column, so it's going to be the sum of this particular column. So I'll click on new measure, total transaction amount, which is equal to sum transaction amount column. So we'll start creating our visualizations. So the first visual we're going to be creating is for our total transaction. So I'll drag total transactions to the canvas. So we have 1000. I'm going to change this to a new card. Adjust it. Then open up the format painter, size and style, background, turn off the background. Also for the padding, I don't want any padding. So I'll change this to 0. Then call out. For this, I want it to be 30. Then the label, I want the label to be below value. For the value itself, which is total transactions, I want the display unit to be none. Then also I'll add comma there so that it will be readable. And scroll down to images. I want to add an image to this, turn it on, browse. So I want this particular ledger image, and I want it to be the position to be left of the text. Then the space between the image and the ledger, that should be 20, and the size of the image 60. And finally on the card itself, I want to turn off the border and background. Let me reduce the height to 109. So we have our first visual. So I'll duplicate this because it's going to be similar to the next one we're creating is going to be similar to this, which is the total transaction amount. I'll remove total transaction, then the amount. I'm just going to edit the name here so that it will show only on the visual. Then add an image. Then change the location of this image to left of text, as well as the space between the image should be 20 and size of the image 60. So we have our two cards. Next one is going to be the line visual for the trend of transaction by time. So I'll click on line chart, drag it to fill up this remaining part of the space. Click on total transaction and then time. So I'll clean it up. Click on size and style, turn off the background, scroll down. For the x-axis, I don't want the title. I also don't want the grid lines, and vertical as well. For the y-axis, okay, I don't want the title and value. Then adjust this. Then turn on the detail label. Then on the line, I want the line to be the color of the line to be this shade of blue so as to fit the our header. Then on data label as well, I want the back to turn it on and the color to also be this shade of blue, but the value should be a solid black so that it will be more legible. Then go to the title, turn that on. So up here I only want time, reduce this to 12, turn on the subtitle, then total transaction by total transaction. Then reduce the font to 9 and change the appearance to italics. So we have the line chart. So the next chart is going to be a bar chart for transaction status. So I'll click on bar chart, drag it to this part, add total transaction and transaction status. I'll drag this transaction status to the legend because I want it to just be one bar. Then start the cleanup. Click on format, turn off the background, scroll down. For the x axis, turn off the value. Then on the legend, turn off the title of the legend and position of that should be bottom center. Scroll down. Where you have the bars, change the color of our bars. So for success, I want the shade of blue, and the other for the failed one, I want the shade of orange. Then for data label, turn that on. Scroll up to where you have title of the chart itself. I want this to only read transaction status, and I will turn on the subtitle, reduce this to 12, turn on the subtitle, and I want the subtitle to have this particular text to it. Then change that to italics as well as the size to 9. So we have the bar chart of transaction status. So the next one is going to be the fraud flag. So this is going to be a donut chart. Click on transactions, total transaction measure, then add the fraud flag to it, whether it is true or false. Then turn off the background and the title, just like we have been doing. Uh-oh. Just like we have been doing, reduce this to 12 and just label it as fraud flag. Add that subtitle, reduce this to 9 and italicize it. Then for the legend, I want this to be bottom center. Then turn off the title. And for the slices, for the false, I want the false to be shade of orange and the true to be a shade of blue. Then the detail label, I only want to show the percentage of total. Everything is outside. Just percent of total and inner radius of 80. So we have the fraud flag. Then for transaction type, which is also a donut chart, I'll duplicate this, place it beneath this particular one, and remove the fraud flag and add transaction type. And I'm going to change the title to transaction type. So we have the transaction type. I'll change this shade of blue to fit the one that we have been using. So next is going to be the map. So I'll click on map, then add total transaction to the bubble size. Then where we have our longitude and latitude, we are going to categorize this. So for our latitude value, click on it, click on data category, label it as latitude. So you have this globe sign. Then for longitude, we are going to do the same thing, label it as longitude. So we have the globe sign as well. So I'm going to drag the latitude value to the latitude section of this map and the longitude to the longitude section. So we have this. I'm going to go to the bubble to change the color of the bubble to fit our theme. Size of the color. So I have 20. And also for the map itself, I'm going to change this to grayscale. So for the title, I want this to only read region. Then reduce the size to 12. Add a subtitle. Subtitle to be by transaction. By total transaction. Make it an italics as well as reduce the size to 9. Next is to add my slicers to this page. I'll click on normal slicer, add a slicer for transaction type, then edit this. I want it to be a drop down. Adjust this. Edit the size, height to be 60, and weight to be 152. So I'll just keep that here. Then I will change the background, turn it off. Then the title of the slicer itself, I'll just reduce that to 10. Then italicize it, change the color to white so that it will be visible. For the slicer value, let me just scroll down. We have value here. The font color will be white. The background of the value, the shade of our blue, so that you can easily see that. So we have this. So I'll duplicate this into 4 places because we want to add 4 different slicers. So I'm going to align them. Format, align, distribute horizontally, align top and bottom so they are evenly distributed. So the next one is going to be transaction status. Remove the transaction type, take transaction status. Next one is the device used. Replace that with device used. And the final one is the network slice ID. Replace that with network slice ID. And finally on this page, I'm going to add a text box for our title. Increase the size to 24. expand it, change the font color to white, then turn off the background. So we have the first page. I'm going to copy everything on this page because the visuals we have on the second page are similar. So I'll just paste this on the second page. Don't sync. So I'll start by changing the title. This is going to read fraud detection. So the next thing I'm going to just do on this page generally before editing other visuals is to edit the filter on this page. So click on filter pane, filter on this page, drag the fraud flag because we want this page to show transactions that are fraudulent. And this is currently showing the total transactions that we have. So I'm going to select where the fraudulent transaction flag is true. So you can see that it has filtered automatically. All the charts on this page are actually showing for fraudulent transactions. So I'll start editing the charts individually. For this particular one, instead of just total transaction, I want it to read fraudulent. So we remove this line chart. Then the transaction type, we drag it to this end, as well as the transaction status. So next here, I'll remove the fraudulent flag chart. So here we're going to have the distribution by bandwidth group that we created initially. So I'll click on bar chart, expand that. So click on transaction, total transaction, which in this case is representing the fraudulent transaction because we have filtered this page. Then drag the bandwidth group to be our distribution. Then edit the chart, format it. For the title, I just want it to read bandwidth. Then reduce the size to 12. Then subtitle, we have fraudulent transaction. So reduce this to 9 and make it an italics. Then also for the X and Y axis, for the X axis, I'm going to turn off the value. For the Y axis, I'm going to turn off the title. Then turn on the data label. And for the bars, I will change the color to our blue color theme. Then adjust the chart. And I'm going to edit the subtitle of this because you can see that it's reading still reading for total transactions. So I'll just click on subtitle, paste a different one, and change it to ensure that it's italicized. Then edit this as well. So we have the two here. So I'll remove this particular title for the X axis here. Then duplicate this so that this particular one represent the network slide. Increase this and increase that so that it will be utilize the space. Remove the bandwidth group that we have on this chart and select network slide. So I'm going to edit the title to network slides. Also, I will edit this particular one. So we have our fraud detection page. The next page, which is the final one, is going to be our transaction details page. So on this page, I'm going to add a table and click on table, drag it down here, ensure it covers the canvas part assigned to it. Then select transaction ID, transaction, the sender account, ID, the receiver ID, transaction type, transaction amount, fraud flag, transaction status, bandwidth group, network slice, and time. On the fraud flag, just click that. You can see that it's currently the data type is true or false. I want it to just be text. So I'll change the data type to text. Okay. So down here, I'm going to edit the table, turn off the background, the style. I want the style to be minimal. Then scroll down, turn off the total, scroll down. The grid, I want the color of the grid to be our blue. That's the border to be our blue. Then on the header part, I want the column header to be text color to be white while the background is our blue. Okay. Then the next thing I'm going to do is to apply conditional formatting on the fraud flag. So wherever the transaction is whatever the fraud flag transaction equal true, meaning that this is a fraudulent transaction, it should be highlighted in green. While if it is false, which is not a fraudulent transaction, it should be highlighted in red. So to do that, I'll click on cell element, scroll down, click on fraud flag, turn on the background color. So if value is equal to true, that is true with uppercase, then give me the color green. I mean red, because it's showing that it's a fraudulent transaction. Then if new row, if value is equal to false, then give me green, showing that this is not a fraudulent transaction. So you can see it is highlighted here. Then I'm going to edit this title. So for that, I'll click on this part where you have sum of transaction. Just click on it and click on non summarize so that that title can just return back to just normal. Edit this part and drag it to the end. So we have transaction details. And next thing, I'm going to add the title as well as the slicers that we had initially in other pages. So I'll click on this title part to select it. Click on all the slicers. Hold down the control key, copy, then paste that here. Don't sync. So I'll change the title to transaction details. Details. Then for this particular page, I want this page to serve as a transaction detail page as well as our drill through page. So to establish that, in the sense that if you're on this page, for instance, and you want to see all the fraudulent transactions within this 150 to 250 category, if you click on this particular part, you can drill through and see the list of those transactions. So I'm going to enable that on this third page. So click on page information, page type, drill through. And once I do that, um, I have these options to add the data that I need. So in that case, I want any visual that contains transaction type to have that drill through effect. So I'm going to add transaction type. Another one is any visual that contains a fraud flag to be able to drill through to this page. Then another is transaction status, also bandwidth group, and finally network slice ID. So any visual that contains any of these categories can have that drill through enabled. So right now, since I've added this data here, I automatically have a back button, and I don't need this back button because I'm going to have my page navigator to navigate from one page to the other. So I'll remove this. Then next thing I'm going to do is to rename these pages. This one is the first one is the home page. Next is the fraud detection page. Then I have the transaction details. So I'm going to click on the home screen, then insert a page navigator. So to do that, I'll click on insert button navigator, page navigator. So automatically I have a page navigator here showing the three pages that we have created. So I'll start formatting this. Um, Scroll down to styles, default, turn off the border and fill for default. Then also for selected, okay, the border and fill is not turned on as well. So go back to default, change the font color to white. We are going to be using accent bar to highlight which particular page is selected. So here we select selected, scroll down, turn on accent bar, expand it. Right now is on the left, so I want it to be on bottom, and I want to increase the width to 5. Then change the color so that it will be highlighted. So you can see that right now home is selected, and I'm going to duplicate this page navigator on the other pages. Just copy, go to fraud detection, paste it there. So for this one, you can see that fraud detection page is selected. Then next one is on transaction details. Paste it. So we are going to test to know if our drill through feature is working. So right now you can see it's enabled. You can drill through to these particular transactions that are failed transactions. So you can see that it's automatically filtered for field. You can check what is filtered on this page by looking at the filter pane. So right now you can see that is the transaction status that is filtered for field transactions. So you can remove this filter here if you want to use this page and see everything, whether field or not. So that is all for this particular report. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and let me know what you think about this report in the comment section below. Bye.